Hello everyone, this is David, and tonight's movie that we watched is Godzilla 1985, or in Japan, The Return of Godzilla. Now, this is the first movie in the 80s, and there are only two Godzilla movies that were made during the 80s, this and Godzilla vs. Biollante. And the American version, Godzilla 1985, which is the one I watched, is somewhat different than the Japanese version. And I'm going to explain those differences right now and kind of not skim over them in the movie when we do the talk about the movie, but they're going to be part of this review. And I haven't seen the Japanese version nearly as much as I've seen the American version, so I don't know the exact differences. Well, I know the differences, but I don't know what the Japanese would have in place of that. So in the American version, there is a lot of cut footage that was not in the original movie, mostly dealing with this subplot of this American military group trying to help out the Japanese from in an American like bunker or something like that. And for what it's worth, I thought it's okay, but it does kind of take you out of the plot because these characters never show up with any of the characters in the main plot. They never interact with any of the characters in the main plot. They're literally just there for us gaijin who can't understand how Godzilla works and needed to make it more acceptable for us Westerners to understand. Raymond Burr returns. He played a character named Steve Martin in the 1954 Godzilla in the American version. He was not in the Japanese version. Again, to Americanize it for our audience so that we're not dealing with a purely foreign film. So when I really boil it down, Americans are kind of dumb when it comes to foreign movies. We we don't like foreign movies. We don't like movies in other languages. We prefer things subbed. I know a lot of people that like, or not subbed but dubbed. I know a lot of people that prefer dubs or subs to dubs, but I am not one of those people. I prefer a dub over a sub. It's mostly because typically when I'm watching a movie, I'm usually doing something else at the same time, unless it's like a really gripping movie. So I might be playing a video game or whatnot. I do that with a lot of like television and whatnot. I watch as well. So I mean, it's not like just limited to movies, but I tend to keep busy while watching something. It's just a habit I started back in like 1999, 1998. I would have like a DVD playing in the background, and I'd be playing like video games or doing something on the computer, and there'd be a movie going in the background. I'd be listening to it more or less. Typically, I would do this with movies I'd already watched a million times and just put them on as kind of like something to go, oh, yeah, this scene's pretty good, and then like turn around for it. But, yeah, so that's why I prefer the dub over the sub. But usually the sub is more accurate to what's actually being portrayed. It's an ongoing like thing. There's not really a good answer. If you don't speak Japanese, no matter what happens, something is going to be lost in translation, no matter what. So let's get to talk about this movie a little bit more. So, other things this movie does. So, the last 14 or so reviews I did no longer apply. This wipes the slate clean and basically says, no, none of those movies happened except for Godzilla. The original movie, Godzilla King of the Monsters, is the only movie that happened. All the rest of those movies didn't happen. This is a new series. Godzilla's back after I think it's a 30-year hiatus. I believe 1954, 1984. So that's 30 years. 30-year anniversary. It's pretty big. And we're quickly coming up on, I believe, the 60-year anniversary of Godzilla. So that's a big deal. Well, for some of us. I suppose if you're not a Godzilla fan, you don't really care. But that's coming up, and this is the halfway mark in the Godzilla saga at this point. if you count the new movie, which I currently do. I'll have to see it to make a full analysis of that, on whether or not I like it or not. And so now we're in the 80s. I've already stated that, but still. We're in the 80s now, and things are a little different. The special effects are considerably better. There's a wider range of motion and animatronics on the Godzilla costume, and sometimes this looks very good, and sometimes, especially with Godzilla's eyes and some of the shots, his eyes kind of roll to the sides to give him a, um, I guess the best term is a herp derp look. His eyes kind of slide off to either side of the head, as opposed to being cross-eyed. It's the opposite of that. I don't know the exact term for opposite-sided eyes like that, but I'm just gonna call it herp derp look. So sometimes that happens, but sometimes he looks really menacing and really good. They added like some lip movements when he roars. The suit just looks a lot better in this one. It looks a lot more, for lack of a better term, realistic. The sets are quite in depth. Godzilla's tromping through Tokyo again, and it looks quite good. No other monsters in this movie. Typically with reboots, Godzilla's solo. It's the way this works typically. That is not 100% true, as we will see come the Millennial series, but still. So let's talk about Godzilla just briefly to revamp like where we've been since 1954. So this Godzilla is a bigger. He's 80 meters tall as opposed to, I believe, the 50. So he's over 200 feet tall now. He's very fierce. He still has atomic breath. He's invincible, basically. He's amphibious. And in the American version, at least, they state that they never found a body from the first Godzilla, suggesting that he was not, in fact, killed at the end of Godzilla. He simply like went to sleep or went off somewhere or is missing. And it's kind of vague as to what exactly happened. Is this a separate creature? Is it the same creature? Left open to interpretation. Could be the same creature, could be a different creature. We don't know. They never say. They just call him Godzilla, and they settle at that. So let's get on to the plot. So this kicks off pretty quickly. And again, I'm reviewing the American version, not the Japanese version. So there'll be a little bit of difference if you've seen the Japanese version. So this kicks off with a fishing vessel, the Yahata Maru, and there's a big storm happening, and they're getting tossed around, and it's a bad day. And off in the distance, you see like this volcanic eruption, and this thing rises out, and you hear Godzilla's roar. Cuts to Raymond Burr as he's looking out a window. You just see it cut to his eyes, and there's like thunder in the background, and lightning, and it's raining wherever he is. And as if he knows the horror from his past has returned once again. And this indeed is true, as Godzilla has returned. So the next day, this reporter, Goro Maki, is sailing, and he finds a deserted fishing vessel, and he goes on board, finds all the crew dead, and all the corpses are like emaciated, and they look really gaunt, like it's almost like really really far gone zombies. It's actually quite graphic. Not really gory, but the dead bodies are quite disturbing if you're a little kid. As an adult, it's nothing big, but it's there. And he gets attacked by another monster. I'm not counting this one as a kaiju because it's not that big. But he gets attacked by I didn't know what this was for the longest time, but it's a giant sea louse. It's this big green stupid looking thing. It tries to bite him, tries to kill him. And the only survivor manages to save him. And his name is Okumura, or Kenny as his sister calls him. I don't know why his sister calls him Kenny. His name's Hiroshi Okumura. I'm guessing that's just in the American dub. I'm pretty sure in the Japanese they don't call him that. So anyways, they get rescued. He goes back to his newspaper and is like, look, this guy's boat was attacked by Godzilla. Godzilla's back. And the news guys, he reports it into the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's like, okay, we're not spreading this because it'll cause panic. And so it gets back to the head, and the head's like, yeah, we're not running your story because we're inside a panic, but you should follow it. So he's following it, and he goes to meet with this guy, Hayashida, who's a biophysicist, and they're talking back and forth about Godzilla, and he explains to him how he's a genetic mutation and how he's indestructible and immortal, and he'll walk the earth forever, which is kind of ominous. Cuts, and that goes back and forth for a little bit. Um, Maki meets up with Nokio, which is Hiroshi's sister, and who is an assistant to Hayashida. And he takes a liking to her, and he's not supposed to tell her, but he tells her that his sister or her brother is alive because the government won't tell her that. He's just missing, and she's all distraught because he pays for all of her school bills basically, because that's why he was out fishing to get her money so she can go to school. So that all happens. There's a big press thing happening with that. And then Godzilla attacks a nuclear sub, a Russian nuclear sub, or Soviet, I suppose, at this point, because it was the Soviet Union. Attacks it, destroys it, and quite an interesting and ominous scene. They detect something on the sonar, and it's coming towards them, and it's emitting active sonar, and they don't know what it is. So they fire torpedoes, and they hit it direct on, and nothing happens. And Godzilla basically destroys the sub. And at this point, the U.S. is blaming, the Soviets are blaming the U.S. for the destruction of the sub. The U.S. is saying we didn't do it, and this is during the height of the Cold War, so everyone has missiles pointed at each other. The alerts all cut up, or the alerts are all stacked up as high as they can go. It cuts to the Americans for the first time. There's this general, this snarky bastard, who's he's like assistant. I don't really know his rank or what he's supposed to be, but they're talking back and forth about what they can do about this. Japanese decide, they come out and say it wasn't the Americans, it was Godzilla. And press goes nuts. And they're like, where's the Godzilla going to attack again? And they're charting it out. And he attacked further away this time, out in the ocean, but he'll come back to feed, because he eats radiation now, which is a thing. And so that's, where's he going to hit next? Who knows? So he ends up attacking the Hokuyana reactor. I forget the exact name for it, but I believe it was the Hokuyana reactor. And a very interesting scene. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is it starts with I think loons in this very peaceful setting, and the birds fly off, and it cuts to a top view of clouds, and you hear stomping as Godzilla is walking towards it, so you can see his point of view. And it cuts to this guy walking out of this building, and there's the stomping, and the ground cracks open, and he looks up and he sees Godzilla. Don't know how Godzilla snuck up on all of them, but apparently no one was paying attention. And that little scene, just for lack of a better term, I just love it. I don't know what it is about it, but I just like it. It's simple, it's effective, it amuses me. Godzilla goes in, destroys the reactor, sucks out all the radiation. The scientist, Hayashida, shows up, takes a bunch of photographs, and then Godzilla suddenly drops the reactor and leaves. Turns out, they find out later, the reason for this is because of conditioned response. A bunch of birds flew by, and he followed them back to the sea. So Hayashida starts working on a device to manipulate Godzilla that way. Meanwhile, they're going back and forth what they're going to do. They talk about deploying the Super X. The Russians and the Americans are like, we need to deploy nuclear weapons to kill Godzilla. Japan's like, we can't allow nuclear weapons, not even for things as ridiculous as Godzilla. It's impossible. We're not doing it. Cuts to the Soviets have missiles in space on satellites. Now, in the Japanese version, this is one of the differences I do know. In the Japanese version, it shows the U.S. and the Soviets have missiles. In the American version, it's just the Soviets because of propaganda. So that's a thing. That's a thing that happened. So anyway, so they're debating what to do, and they're going to deploy the Super X, which is this new flying attack plane type thing. Long story short, they're looking for Godzilla. Godzilla attacks Tokyo. He comes in, they deploy the defense force. He smokes the entire defense force, just strolls into the city. Everyone's evacuated. He's stomping around the town. Um, then Hayashida uses his thing. It calls Godzilla right to the building. Then the Super X attacks him. It hits him with cadmium bombs, or missiles in this case, and neutralizes him. He passes out. But due to problems that happened when he attacked Tokyo Bay, a Soviet missile was launched. The Americans fire a counter missile. They blow each other up. Causes a radioactive fallout. Radioactive fallout reanimates Godzilla. He's back in business, baby. But Hayashida has gotten his thing working. He gets it to Mount Mihara, where he has his friend, and they're going to lure him into a volcano. Suffice to say, Godzilla chases them around for a little bit, stomps around the city, destroys the Super X, drops a whole building on it, which is quite impressive. Hayashida activates the device to call in Godzilla. Godzilla goes in there, goes up to the volcano. They detonate the side of the volcano to activate a premature volcanic eruption. It erupts. Godzilla falls in and screaming all the way down, and it's quite disconcerting. And he goes to the ground, and that is Godzilla 1985. Now, I did brush over some of the attack, which goes on for about half the movie. It's quite good. You see a lot of Godzilla. You see a lot of what he's up to, and he looks, for the most part, quite good. There's a couple instances where he doesn't look so hot. His eyes do a little funny thing. But for the most part, he looks pretty good, and he's pretty fearsome in this one, back to being a big old, just destructive force of nature. In the end, I definitely recommend this one. It's quite good. It's a restart to the series, and more or less a portent of things to come. There will be more Godzilla in the future. Now, I didn't know this till much later, but it turns out Toho would be making movies all throughout the 80s and 90s in, I believe, a 5 or 6 part series. So tune in next time where we go into Godzilla vs. Biollante. Oh yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right, good night, folks.